But one of the key messages there was just that you can't protect yourself from all threats. It's not really a matter of if you will experience some loss of productivity because of a cyber attack. It's really what you do when that happens and how much you'll be exposed to risk based on the ability for lateral spread across your network, and so risk mitigation.
It's not if, it's when. Welcome to Insights as a Service, episode 40. Exciting. Taking over this week, changing it up. Brendan's a bit low energy today. 19th coffee, I've heard, as he powers through the week.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. What's been going on?
Don't forget to like and subscribe is the other thing.
Yeah,
on whatever platform you're watching this on. That's important. Remain tells us. I've been at conferences. I've been at IT Nation, the ConnectWise event. I've been at the Gartner Symposium here on the Gold Coast. You were at the IT Nation event. I have. After getting back from holiday. So yeah, what did you make of the IT Nation event?
I loved it. Good event. It's rare to go to an event where the networking is absolutely prime, but it has good sessions for those that are actually in the industry, the IT industry, and those that are just in there in peripheral industries like telecommunications, to have key takeaways, and there's some solid sessions in there. Even on a late Friday afternoon, they were still pumping out the quality content.
Yeah, agree. No, it was good.
Quite cool.
And like any IT event at the moment, it was very security focused.
Yeah.
A lot of sessions. But yeah, if you're an MSP, I definitely recommend it. There's a lot of really hands-on, service delivery life in the day of a service delivery manager,
I've gone to a lot of conferences, and that's probably one that stands out as one I go back to.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Interesting because, the Gartner Symposium, I guess they had a wider approach, right? They weren't trying to go, hey, if you're in, they were it was CIO role, but I guess because it was sort of more of a horizontal than a vertical, I suppose. CIOs across so many different roles. I just felt that the content wasn't quite as engaging, although their model is more come to the session, learn enough to make you interested, then come talk to us in the booths later. But I always take that as the upsell opportunity to sell you some consulting to try and really, get their bread and butter. It's a sales engine for them, which I guess all conferences kind of are. So I don't begrudge them, but yeah, it was one thing that was common between both of them. I don't know if you've noticed this too, but every conference starts with a really cheesy, overproduced, largely stock imagery and B-roll though, heavy video. It's always like, in a world that's constantly changing, you're the one constant. IT is important in keeping people alive, and you're at the forefront. And like, it just a whole lot of words that don't mean anything.
They're just really good throwbacks to, I think, that classic American, I guess, marketing tactics and things like that. And if you think back to like the early days of the Microsoft and Apple events, and people I think are trying to pseudo rip those off.
Yeah. But they don't land that way.
No, not in Australia and New Zealand.
No.
They might do overseas.
Yeah. I actually saw Zscaler did a different take on this. They got the CMO to launch their conference, their last big one. And they had thing where they went in the street and they asked random people on the streets of Las Vegas, I think, what does, insert industry term here, like firewall, what's a firewall? And people would give their answer, and they were all terrible answers. And at least it was less like trying to hype you up and more relaxing you and kind of getting you in like interested in, I don't know, just, I guess, aligned with the brand, kind of taking it easy, getting sort of settled in for the day. It landed better. It wasn't perfect, but it was certainly better than that sort of cheesy, overproduced, kind of.
So it comes across as more genuine.
Yeah. But anyway, it's ripe for parody. Someone should do that. But yeah, so the Gartner one's more fresh in my mind because it was the most recent. So that was last week. What's the date that we're recording this on? The 19th of September. Right. So the second keynote, day 2 of a 3-day conference had, I have to refer to my notes here, but Adam Banks, the former CTIO at Maersk, which I always find hard to pronounce because it's Maersk, but it's the big shipping company. 1/3 of the world's shipping is done with them, along with Daniel Evans, who is the current CTO at Rio Tinto.
Didn't you also get a really good fact about shipping and carbon monoxide?
Yeah, a fact, quote unquote. So on the stage, it was really weird because they said, so the former CTO, CIO of Maersk said that their 16 biggest ships emitted more CO2 than all of the cars in the world combined. And the moderator said, "Hey, can I just stop you there?" And he turned to the audience and he went, "Just think about that. The 16 biggest ships emit more than all of the cars in the world combined." I went, "Huh, that seems really unlikely, but wow." And
it's a lot considering how many cars.
that's it. And there's more cars like every day. So are these ships getting constantly bigger, or at what point was that true? Or is it, how long is it going to be true for? So I put up on the old LinkedIn, I was like, keynote fact, sort of quote unquote, that is the case. And it didn't take a lot of people to go, nope. Pretty quick Google says nope. And obviously I wasn't Googling at the time, should have. But yeah, so it seems weird that apparently there's some study in like 2008 that sort of alluded to that, but wasn't fact checked and wasn't accurate. And since then has sort of been the basis for those claims. But yeah, not accurate.
No, do your homework. 2008, I feel like data wasn't really there yet, It seems so long ago.
Either way, not a fact. Well,
I wouldn't be quoting a 2008 fact for just about anything.
At the time, I didn't realize it was 2008. I didn't realize anything. I should have just don't post. Just don't post anything anywhere. That way you're safe. That's the answer to everything. They say is they record a podcast to post on socials, restating the facts that weren't facts. Anyway, yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for bringing that up. So basically the key to, well, it wasn't really the key. They were talking about a lot of the things that Rio Tinto has done, but because this guy, Adam Banks, was the former CTIO at Maersk, the moderator was like, look, I guess I've got to bring it up that, one of the most damaging cyber attacks in history was committed on your watch. And I guess my first thought is that, yeah, that's true. And maybe I should just I'll touch on the actual event first, actually. So as I understand it, so this company controls a third of the world's shipping, and they went through what Wired called the most devastating cyber attack in history, which is a pretty big claim. It had 50,000 endpoints infected across 600 sites in 15 countries. It cost $300 million in lost productivity, and the short lesson from it was keep up to date with patches, because that was essentially the issue there. So if you want more detail on exactly what happened in that particular case, Hilary Walton, the CISO at Cordia in NZ, she wrote a really good short piece on this just earlier this month, actually, in just a coincidence there. But check that out if you want more detail. It's a good little summary. But one thing that struck me is, so this guy Adam and his personal brand, he was at the helm when this terrible thing happened, and it took them 10 days. They didn't pay the ransom. For 10 days, they essentially just stopped the network, unplugged everything, rebuilt. They had, just complete loss of productivity during that period. And now he's this, on the one hand, this subject matter expert for what to do in terms of incident response, how they got there, how they got out of it, etc. But at the same time, every time he's on a panel, every time he goes and talks to other boards, he's in a consultant position now. That's what he's known for. And so every time you have a conversation like this, you're on a panel at a conference, it's like, hey, tell us about that time that everything that could have possibly gone wrong did go wrong on your watch.
No matter how much, you can either embrace that or you can try and push it off. But to top that with another thing you're known by is going to be pretty tough.
Real tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. He seems to have made peace with it. He didn't fire up when asked about it, but yeah, it was an interesting story. But one of the key messages there was just that you can't protect yourself from all threats. It's not really a matter of if you will experience some loss of productivity because of a cyber attack. It's really what you do when that happens and how much you'll be exposed to risk based on the ability for lateral spread across your network. And so risk mitigation.
It's not if, it's when.
Yeah. So risk mitigation, not complete cancellation. You can't remove the risk. You can just look at exactly how you respond and how quickly it will spread and how you react.
Yeah.
So
I think it's important as well. Like a lot of tech leaders and cybersecurity leaders think about it from a very technical fact point. Go talk to someone in HR. Go just walk around and talk to some junior engineer or some temporary worker. I'm sure they'll have some amazing ideas of how crap the security is on that one thing that they do, which could be, a little device that's connected to the internet that they use for scanning packages or something like that. There's tons of little areas that people don't think about because it's so far down and below their role.
And that sort of relates to one of the points they made there, which is that the cloud is fundamentally secure, but how we use it is flawed. How we use it or implement it is flawed. And that's where the issues come in. And I guess that's, like Office 365 is fundamentally secure, but when you respond to an email that comes in over that that platform that's, phishing or macros or whatever, then it's not secure in the way it's being used.
Yeah.
So
I actually pulled a list of the top cybersecurity breaches for 2021 and 2022 as we power through 2022. So jumping back though, we had the SolarWinds hack, which exposed Mimecast customer emails. That was in January last year. Then we moved on to June, where hackers used Slack to break into EA games.
Didn't know that.
Then we had the Kaseya issue in July.
Yep.
It's a strong 3 months here. Then a misconfiguration of exposed 38 million records. That was with Microsoft, apparently.
Oof.
And then nothing for the rest of the year. People were quite busy after obviously doing those four attacks. And then we moved on to 2022. And then in January this year, we had a malicious OAuth apps taking over a CEO's account. Again, it's a Microsoft logo next to that. And then Okta had hundreds of companies impacted by a breach that they had. Again, third-party vendor that a lot of people rely on. HubSpot, dozens of accounts breached and customer information. MailChimp, the next month. Clearly, might have been some commonality between those two. Haven't looked at the details, but both CRMs. And then we had Gmail attacked, bypassed two-factor authentication to read all your emails. And that was in August, so last month. So I hadn't actually even heard about that one, but that's I'm going to look at that one after this because that sounds pretty incredible.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing is that the sophistication, it's a genuine industry.
Yeah.
The ransomware particularly, because there's a clear payback on that. They've got marketing firms going out and spruiking their wares to other entities, like other obviously malicious entities, going, we can do this for you. We guarantee to hit this many endpoints and get this many bytes and this much return. And it's incredibly mature at this point, and I'm sure it'll keep evolving as they all do. But it's you can be seeing the way it's maturing can be seen in its constant evolution. So I don't know if I've told you this story before. I probably have, but I'm not sure if I've put it on the podcast, where a company we work with, and I'll just leave names out of it for the sake of reputation and security and stuff. A person within the business received a phone call from the number of their CEO or managing director. And the voice on the phone was that of that person. And it was asking them to make a deposit into a specific account because the CFO was on a flight and the payment had to be done now. This person was in a role where that could have made sense, but he said, look, I'm actually on the way to the office. I'm on the freeway. I can't pull over, can't do that. The voice said, look, I need you to do this now. If you can pull over and do it via hotspot, whatever, that'd be great. He just went, look, I can't. I'll be at the office in 10. I'll get it done. It's not going to damage anything. Got to the office and the CFO was there. And he's like, I'm on my way to my desk to do something that the boss wanted done. Well, you're supposed to be on a plane. He's like, I was never going to be on a plane. Haven't spoken to the boss this morning. Pretty sure he's on a plane. What was the go? So it turns out, long story short, it's just the use of AI where they've taken, particularly for high profile people who there's a lot of content on the web for videos, etc. where
screwed.
They can, so screwed, so high profile. But basically, they can now, through just machine learning, sort of repurpose the voice samples they've got to construct dialogues, and the machines can think fast enough to respond to questions or pushbacks and recreate, counter arguments to it. So, and obviously spoofing the number as well to come across from the right place. The guy telling me the story just grabbed a phone, rang me off my own number to show me how easy it was to just spoof the numbers as well. So it's just incredible where it's going to. And so it really is about that trust no one anywhere to do anything, which is pretty daunting. But
and that's so hard to stay on top of as well, like particularly for those that try and do IT in-house or something like that. Like you really do need to be partnering strategically with people that just live and breathe this stuff daily.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just going to end up in a small little narrow bit that's super secure, and you can go, yeah, that's great. And then 99% of everything else around you is a burning fire waiting to be, just encroached on.
So, and that's it, right? The way that Maersk got caught up in this was that they weren't even the target. Yeah. They were interacting with a company that was the target. And because they had some integrated systems, the unpatched vulnerability in their ecosystem was discovered. And then that was the much bigger and juicier target. And the attackers put everything into that. And one of the things that in the Gartner conference they did, they really illustrated, I think, quite well with a 3D model was just the growth of that the SaaS and application environment around every business almost, and how that's proliferating and creating an ever bigger attack surface. So, yeah,
it's not changed as well, like going from organization to organization. If you go back to, again, 2008, perhaps, people sharing USB sticks because they were kind of trendy back then, just moved on from the world of floppy. And you could move heaps of data between computers, lickety split.
Mm-hmm.
And again, viruses would just be transposed from that. You get someone who comes home, the kids copy some files to it, get some free games, plug into dad's work laptop.
And there was always the LinkedIn Park.exe files that you download off LimeWire.
From LimeWire, yeah, so good.
That always went down well. But the other thing they brought up as part of that particular conversation around Rio Tinto is the moderator said, "What's the company's policy on ransomware?" And he just said, "It's a no. It's a hard no, unless lives are at risk." And so, what kind of lives would be at risk for them? Well, even in automated environments like mine sites, as much as they can now, there are still people working on those sites where if particular infrastructure doesn't do what it's supposed to do, whether it's like ventilation or whatever, then those lives are at risk. And so what's the dollar figure? What's the level of risk? It's not absolute, someone's going to die, someone's not. It could introduce an element of risk. What risk is acceptable? It's an extremely fraught area, and one that I think has a lot of both ethical and legal questions around it. It's far from clear. So that was that was an interesting part of the conversation.
Like, I know the FBI's position is like, don't pay the ransom because you're basically just giving them more money to fund better and more sophisticated operations, so they can keep doing this on bigger and better scales with cooler technology. Think about how many of them just have like whole development teams behind them.
A lot,
just pumping out new stuff, staying ahead of whatever the counter one is. And I think from that perspective, it makes a lot of sense to have that. No, we're not going to pay. We're going to be very macho. But I think insurance companies would also love that as well. And they don't have to pay out on cyber insurance, ransomware, and things like that. So there is that element to it as well. But again, you do bring it back to, is it lives? Will it get it back faster? What's the cost to my business for this?
And I guess that's why there was such a huge focus on incident response as much as there was on prevention in both the IT Nations event and the Gartner Symposium, because the reality is that the more prepared you are, the less likely it is that your only option is to pay the ransom. Yeah.
But so it's not like in Australia, it's not illegal to pay the ransom, but there are some other things that come into it in terms of other regulatory frameworks. I'm going to read a little bit here because this is a lot of legal stuff that I have not had time to fully memorize.
Okay.
Despite loving all that stuff. There's the Criminal Code Act over here, which kind of highlights whether you deal with money and property, is there a risk of that being used as an instrument of crime down the road, and were you reckless or negligent as to where the money will be used for that crime. So then you have to consider whether a hacker demanding a ransom as part of a ransomware attack will have committed one or more criminal offenses. And while it's possible that hacker who has asked for the ransom to use the proceeds of their crime for non-criminal fashion, or will they continue to use it for further ransomware attacks? And as that's used to then fund more equipment and future attacks, the companies will then potentially fall into the lines of, where is it here? Instruments of crime, funding instruments of crime to facilitate future offenses.
How would anyone prove that though?
Which is tough. And two, the defense that's kind of written here is that it's that of duress. Like we had no,
gun to the head.
Ruined, the hacker's threat was going to be carried out whether we could, prevent it or not. There's no reasonable way we could defend against it, or the payment was reasonable. Is the other one. But again, like it's just going to be a world of lawyers battling it out if anyone tries to go down that route of going like, you can't pay it, it's illegal.
Yeah.
Which is pretty crazy.
It is crazy. That seems like a really just an outdated way of looking at it. You have no insight into how it's going to be used. You have to assume yes, but try and prove it.
Yeah.
I mean, often these people are completely anonymous, right? So yeah, that just seems like outdated legislation.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea when that was written or what what act that was part of?
So that's part of the Criminal Code Act 1995, which relates back again.
Yep. Okay, that makes sense.
It's pretty out of date, but
Yeah.
but that's how it can be applied, because
Okay.
it's all around really money laundering essentially at the end
Yeah.
of the day, and that's ultimately what it kind of comes down to, of how they use that money to fund it. So you can interpret the law in many different ways to apply it to modern technology, but I don't think that it is necessarily all applicable or in the right context these days.
I wonder if globally there's any precedent set around a company choosing not to pay a ransom, and if it hasn't happened yet, I'm sure it will, where they chose not to, and there was a health and safety consequence, whether someone was hurt, whether somebody was exposed to something that has long-term consequences or died, and if it hasn't happened, it probably will, because just the nature of the industries that are affected, utilities, etc. Yeah, and I mean, Australia is not mostly mining, but it's a huge part of the economy. So at some point that'll come into play, and that'll be interesting. What's reasonable grounds for not paying a ransom? When how aware do you have to be of the risk? How much onus is on a company to understand that risk before choosing not to pay? Like, I have no idea, but it just feels like a legal nightmare.
It's not too far removed from even just simple technology solutions. Like, if your internet's down and you have a VoIP phone system and that's the only thing available because you don't have cell coverage from where you're working, like, you do need to ensure that your workers can get that medical care. So you need to look at that resiliency element to it, or some local survivability, so that someone can then at least take that call and get in a car and drive 10 miles down the road to the nearest bit of reception. That is still the basic elements of that, just amplified for cyber attack.
I imagine, though, every single company has to have a stated policy of, nope, don't pay it, because if they do, they're an easy target. If they say that they do, I imagine they probably couldn't be insured against cyber risk. And yeah, they just got a target on their back. Yeah, if it's bad enough, we'll pay. It's like, okay, well, we'll see you soon.
Hey, I heard Company X keeps $400,000 in the back pocket just in case they need to pay a bill.
I mean, it's like, you ever hear a government going, you know what, we do negotiate with terrorists. Yeah. That's our favorite kind of negotiation. Love that. So probably not. Yeah. But okay, cool. Look, the other thing that came out of probably more almost entirely the IT Nations event was just that the pace of M&A in the MSP space is not slowing down. Our friends at Bez IT, for example, this is just one of the conversations I had. They were purchased a few months ago. In that time, the company that purchased them has purchased 2 more entities in Queensland. So just on a simple sample there of one, it's just a sign that those companies just keep there's a clear strategy there in the market for just rolling up of smaller MSPs. I'm interested to see over time whether or not the value that the people inside those businesses think they're creating with that roll-up strategy is going to be, realized because of the lack of integration work that I seem to see. But certainly, on the face of it, there were so many panels about M&A. Everybody who's up in these panels is going, "Yep, I bought 2 last year. I plan to buy another 3 this year." And at some point, there's going to be no more MSPs. But it's
almost which is like, what did your headcount grow by last year? We had 5 staff last year. We're doing really well. And that's, I bought 5 MSPs last year. And look how great we're doing now.
Yeah.
It's like that just gamed up.
Yeah. And I know, like, our friend, Will Slappy was on a little while ago. And I know I see him on LinkedIn. He's bought another 5 or God knows how many. And good on him. But I guess the key thing there is keep a focus on the metrics that matter, not vanity, not headcounts, not revenue, but profitability, intellectual property gains, ability to scale cost effectively, whatever it is. Filling in I did hear some good conversations at IT Nation around why did we purchase that company? Because they had the managerial expertise that we were lacking, because they had the systems in place that we needed to continue to scale. Like, good conversations there. But then there's a simpler conversation, which is, I'm basically buying their revenue, I'm buying their customers. I haven't really got a strategy for how I'm going to keep those customers engaged, or whether they're the right fit for us or whatever. But anyway, at a macro level, there is just a ton of M&A activity still.
And I think, one of the ones that I strongly remember from the IT Nation one was there's the guy up on stage, and he bought a company. It was his first one that he'd ever done. And I walked away from that going like, why? Why did you do that? It was a wasteless distraction for a year.
Oh, that's quite a small one too.
Very small one. I just would have bought it. Like if you really, really wanted it, bought it to run as a separate entity.
Yeah.
The client base was completely different.
Yeah.
The service offerings, one was like an MSP, and essentially one was more of a generalist IT company. And the client, there was no crossover, there was no economies of scale. It was just a bizarre distraction that I think he said like break even was going to be like 3-4 years, which was longer than he expected. But again, it just didn't align with what he was trying to actually achieve.
Yeah, that's it. Even if you're approached with these things and it can be exciting and so on, but the power of no, you got to think about the opportunity cost.
Yeah.
Easy. I mean, to be fair to that guy, he got up on stage and he was basically, don't do what I did.
Yeah.
You know? So I think he knows that in retrospect.
Oh,
but
sure.
there was some really good honesty up there around the experiences people have had in that space. And I felt like, particularly IT Nation, there was a real sense of camaraderie. At times in other settings, I've seen MSPs be a little bit guarded, particularly around staff, like, they're my most crucial asset and I just can't risk them being approached or getting too friendly with another operator. But at that particular event, through that Evolve program that they have with ConnectWise, it was just a real sense of, when the tide rises, all boats rise with it. And it was really nice to be around.
Yeah, it was good energy in that conference.
Yeah. So the other thing across the two conferences that was interesting to gauge is just the general economic sentiment at the moment. How do people see the next 12 to 24 months? And there was a bit of a split. Like there was a lot of talk about handling pricing and managing growth in a period of high inflation. That was cool. Everyone understood that's what we're in. But talking to people on the sidelines from the public sector versus private sector was quite different. The public sector was, in New Zealand, for example, with the GHB changes going to national model versus the district model, that there was a real slowdown in terms of projects. The government over here is very publicly stating, hey, there is no money.
Show me the money.
Yeah, basically just stop asking for stuff. Everything that's been told to you by the previous government isn't able to be funded. And we've got some tough times ahead. So a lot of tightening of belts, a lot of resetting of expectations, and a lot of, I think across both public and private, I think there's a very clear message from everybody across both conferences that, don't talk about capabilities as a result, talk about the cost savings or the increased productivity, reframe how you ask for things basically, or how you propose things. But in the private sector, there was really no sense that I could see that there was any slowdown or pessimism or anything like that. That still everyone's hurting with the lack of skills. Everybody wants more people who can do good things. Everyone understands they're more expensive and no one's happy about it. But just in terms of the opportunities in front of them, I just haven't yet in either country, New Zealand or Australia, got the sense that anyone's particularly worried.
No, and I think there's a slight level of maturity perhaps coming through as well for some of those operators. They're going, hey, maybe I can actually use technology in particular to drive economies of scale, to reduce costs in my business, to make things more profitable, to not mean I need to hire someone else. I do think business operators, after a couple of years of heavily ingesting technology with lockdowns and stuff like that, have now started to surface, pop their heads up and go, I can do this better.
Yeah.
Particularly when forced with cost factors of their own, squeezing their margins.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, that'd be great for the people that listen to this podcast and probably ourselves, But yeah, certainly I think when there was probably a number of sessions where it was all about, hey, here's how you pitch a proposal now. Here's how people who you're looking to get it across, whether you're a CIO who's looking to pitch to the board and you want them to buy into your project, or you're pitching at a decision maker within a company in the private sector. They care about the impact on the bottom line, not the technical details. So talk to them about the outcomes and work back from there. Talk to them about the problem you're trying to fix and the impact that'll have on their business and what matters to them and their position, which honestly is kind of common sense, I think, but it's more important than ever. When things are getting a bit tighter, that you double down on that approach
and get really succinct with the messaging on it.
Yeah, for sure. But that was probably it for the two for me. Met lots of great people, had lots of great conversations with some existing friends and colleagues, but good couple of weeks. But now absolutely need to get back to actually doing my job and maybe swear off. Well, I was going to say swear off the conferences for a little while. We're going to one tomorrow. so full of crap.
Last one.
Last one. I swear to God, I can stop anytime I want. I can stop. Jesus Christ. Oh, okay, cool. So that's all I've got. Anything else you want to talk about this week?
No, I'm good.
Boom. All right, look, let's go. Relatively short ep, I think, although I have no idea how long this is going for, but cool. I'll see you again for this in a week or so.
Yeah.
Done. All right, cheers.
Ciao.
See you, everyone.